Friends and enemies alike, we are here following the Week 15 Sunday slates. Every Monday morning, we recap every game that happened on Thursday night, on Sunday night, starting next week, on Saturdays as well. The NFL's not fucking around no more. They got games every day of the week pretty much. You got Wednesday games when Christmas comes around, but we are here specifically for Week 15, as we always are every single Monday morning. So if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell, ding, 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 on in this hoe. And that'll let you know when I go live every single Monday morning, all right? This is obviously from a fantasy perspective. This is going to be a long one because we've got no bye week, so we are going to dive right into the slate, starting off on Thursday with the Rams beating the Niners 12-6, one of the woaded games. Extremely difficult to watch, just pure field goal after field goal after field goal after field goal. In this one, Stafford had a terrible game. Cooper Kupp put up a 0 spot for all y'all. Anyways, there's no real takeaways here from the Rams side of things. Puka's a high-end wide receiver one. I don't know what the limit is for him in drafts next year, to be honest with you. I think there's a chance that Puka ends up being, like people were debating at the end of the first, early second coming into this year. He was a bit of a polarizing pick just because we felt like maybe his rookie year was a little bit fluky. If you've watched football at all this year, I don't need to hear a single number-based argument this offseason to select Puka with my first-round pick and not think twice about it. The man is, that's what he is. He's a man. He's a man amongst little girls out there. He is one of the better receivers in the NFL, without a doubt. As long as Stafford and McVay are back, Puka deserves every bit of that mid first round consideration going into next year. Excuse me. Cooper Kupp, obviously a rough game here. 0 for 0, probably kicked you out of your playoffs here. But you go back to him regardless if you're still in the playoffs, or if you have a bye or whatever the case may be. On the flip side, we did see Isaac Guerendo come in, and he was super questionable for Thursday Night Football, but he did end up playing, carried 20 touches, all right? 16 carries, 4 receptions. Since C-Mac and Jordan Mason have gone down, Guerendo has out-touched Patrick Taylor. I believe it's 37-1 or something like that. So Guerendo didn't do much in way of fantasy production for you. He did kind of get it done in PPR. Got a little bit lucky there. But he seems to be the clear guy here for the time being. So you have a pretty solid running back two, in my opinion. Juwan Jennings, rough day. The rain really impacted this game. Juwan Jennings had like 2 or 3 drops that were a little bit uncharacteristic. Debo and Ricky P continued to be just absolute cones that you cannot play in your fantasy playoffs. But I feel good about Kittle. I feel good about Guerendo. I'll feel fine about Juwan Jennings in non-weather related games. Geez, sorry. Going forward, we have a lot of injuries this week. A lot of injuries to a lot of key players. Few of them happening in this game, and we'll touch on every injury that happened. We'll touch on what that means for fantasy. Obviously, we'll do a full waiver wire video tomorrow that will touch more in depth on the guys that we'll be picking up, fab suggestions, things like that. So another reason to put the D in the subscribe button down there. Patrick Mahomes, so he rolled up on his ankle. They end up winning 21-7 over the Browns. But Mahomes suffered what appears to be a high ankle sprain. Now, he's definitely not ruled out. We've seen him play through this. We've seen him be like really tough. They play on Saturday this upcoming week, and then on Wednesday the week after that. So this game started a chain reaction of 3 games for the Chiefs within like an 11 or 12-day period, which makes things really tricky for Mahomes if they want to push through that injury. They have, I believe it was an 88% chance to secure the number 1 seed in the AFC and get that bye. So, they have a very high likelihood of getting that regardless of Mahomes playing. Carson Wentz is his backup. Right now, I don't think there's anything definitive to rule him out or to rule him in for next week's game. Obviously, if Mahomes is out, that's a problem for all the pass catchers in this offense. I need I don't know what is going on. We're going to battle through this. I just got a little tickle in the throat. It's just there. It's just like tapping on my throat. It's like Uncle Nicky, just give me a little tickle. In the backfield, this was one of my concerns in the pregame sit-start Q&As that we were doing where Pacheco, a lot of people had sit-start questions for Pacheco, and he just worries me. Like, he's had some good runs, but I still don't think we're seeing Pacheco at full strength, and I don't know that we see that this year, at least not like before next week or week 17 or like into the playoffs, really, right? And that concerns me, and we haven't really seen any sort of ceiling out of him since he's returned. Like, he's getting carries, he's getting touches, but as you can see, Hunt and Pacheco split the work right down the middle here. 13 carries each. Pacheco got, a target in this game. Kareem Hunt got 2 targets, so it's really being dispersed, and we're not seeing where the goal line carries are going. Samaje Perine like mixing in a little bit on the 2 and 4 minute drills, so I don't know that any of them are playable. I don't know that Pacheco's anything more than like a desperate flex play right now. I think I had him labeled as an L flex in the running back video from last week on Wednesday. Xavier Worthy's getting really involved, though. 11 targets, career high, obviously. Also had the end around that I feel like could have been called a passing touchdown, but 3 for 30 on the ground and a touchdown, 6 for 46 through the air. So overall, a really, really good day for what we've seen out of Xavier Worthy. He's getting more involved. The only issue is Marquise Hollywood-Brown might be back next week 17 the latest, so I don't know how trustworthy he's going to be, and all of that obviously only depends on Patrick Mahomes being in the lineup. On the flip side, Winston, another 3 interceptions. That I believe is 9 interceptions in his last 3 games. He got benched for DTR. Nick Chubb broke his foot, so he'll be out for the remainder of the season. Jerome Ford is funny because I was drafting Jerome Ford in so many underdog leagues for best ball this offseason, and in my advancing best ball mania teams, the ones that advanced were the Jerome Ford / Tajay Spears drafted teams. So Jerome Ford showed up when it matters, and it looks like he's going to be a workhorse for the remainder of the season with Nick Chubb out. So if he is available on your waiver wire, he would be one of, if not the top prioritized pickup going forward, because he can catch passes, he can break away runs. Like we saw that all last year, and we saw it yesterday. So Jerome Ford is a massive pickup with Nick Chubb out. I don't know what they're going to do at QB. Like, they benched Winston, but I still don't know that guarantees DTR is going to be the starter next week. I think there's a chance they go back to Winston. I also think there's a chance they go to DTR because there was that point in the middle of the season where Watson got hurt, or they benched Watson and Winston wasn't even the number 2 at the time, so they put DTR in. So a little bit weird, a little bit wonky. They did not commit to anyone after the game, so there's still some things to be decided there. If DTR is under center, that's a huge hit to all the pass catchers, in my humble ass opinion. Even like Jerry Jeudy had another huge game, 14 targets, 11 catches, 108. Still no Cedric Tillman, out with the concussion, which is obviously getting concerning. No David Njoku in this game. Somehow Elijah Moore fucking 2 for -1 on 6 targets, despite those 2 being out. Jeudy keeps getting it done, but I'm going to be honest, dude. If DTR is the quarterback going forward, Jeudy to me ends up being like a very risky flex play. DTR is just not a very good passer of the football at the NFL level, so he scares me a little bit. Bengals and the Titans, this was just a game of so many fucking turnovers. Joe Burrow did his thing, though. Chase Brown did his thing. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins all did their thing. So nothing really to talk about from that side. For the Titans, Will Levis, 3 more interceptions. He got benched for Mason Rudolph, who, lit a little bit of a spark in this offense. Tony Pollard, now he went 17 for 45 and a touchdown on the ground, but Tajay Spears was a lot more involved. He got a goal line carry, also caught a touchdown pass, 7 targets, 6 catches, 87 yards. Pollard came into the game banged up, ended up like retweaking his ankle in this one, so he missed some snaps. Let me actually bring up the snap counts here. From Fantasy Life to see what the splits were between Pollard and Spears. It felt like it was all Spears towards the end of the game. A lot of that is because he is the pass catching back and they were down a lot of points, so I wouldn't read too much into that. But yeah, Tony Pollard down at 45%, which is a season low, while Tajay Spears was up at 55%, a season high, obviously. 68% of the routes. A lot of the snaps at the end of the game, of course, were routes because they were down a lot. But I think that's obviously something to keep an eye on if Tony Pollard's ankle swells up again. It's tough to get a read throughout the week because he's had so many DMPs and ended up playing. But obviously, if Tajay Spears takes the backfield for himself, he has insane upside, and they have a great schedule going forward here. Ultimately, disappointing day for Calvin Ridley. NWI came back down to earth for the second week in a row. Commanders and Saints. I would say it's a good game. Wasn't really a good game. Saints tied it up at the very end, went for 2 and did not get it. Jaden Daniels, 226 and 2 touchdowns through the air, 11 for 66 on the ground. Brian Robinson was set up to smash, just did not really come through. 21 for 65 and 3 for 22 through the air. Did not get into the end zone. I feel like he was like minus 220 to score a touchdown in this one. Did not come through. He's still dominating the backfield touches. I believe Austin Eckler can return in week 17 maybe. So you probably still have B-Rob for another week. Terry McLaurin gets it done again. You're not really starting anybody else in this receiver group. Zach Ertz did get hurt in this one, so that's something to keep an eye on. If he is out, not that I feel better about anybody else in this offense, but Terry McLaurin probably more targets. On the flip side, Jake Haener got benched in favor of Spencer Rattler, and the team did respond. I feel like Spencer Rattler is kind of giving them a little bit of juice, and he should be starting regardless. Like you have absolutely no outcome that's positive with Jake Haener under center. Spencer Rattler, at least like see what you got in the young, exciting rookie here. The other big injury here was Alvin Kamara. Now I think it was a groin injury. It was either hip or a groin. I'm pretty sure it was a groin injury. He left the game, did not return. He was having a good game, had an insane fucking reception, 29-yard touchdown catch down the sideline. Just vintage Kamara, but Kendre Miller filled in nicely for the second week in a row, 9 for 46 on the ground. He's not a pass-catching back, so we won't really add that to it, but just add it to another list of injuries for this backfield. But if Kamara does miss time, like Kendre Miller, I think, becomes an interesting flex play because they're not getting Jamal Williams involved at all. And again, they have absolutely nobody fucking else to give the ball to or do anything really on offense here. It's just a bad offense overall. As you can see, like the yardage difference here, they were outgained. Where was it? I don't know. Just trust me, they were outgained by a lot. It wasn't really a close game at any point until the very end there. So Kendre Miller would be the top waiver wire priority of this game based on the injuries. But yeah, we're just seeing a lot of injuries down the list. They kind of fucking all just piled up in today's games. The Ravens beat the shit out of the New York Giants 35-14. Lamar, 5 more touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 11.6 yards per attempt. Insane number. Disappointing day for Derrick Henry, unfortunately. 14 for 67 does not get into the end zone. You want to talk about Brian Robinson's pregame touchdown odds being high? Derrick Henry's were like probably minus 350. Didn't come through there, unfortunately. Rashad Bateman did, though. 3 for 82 touchdowns. Justice Hill involved in the backfield. We are seeing, I don't know, is Derrick Henry's age shown a little bit? Has he lost a little bit of juice? We're not seeing the long, explosive runs. Maybe it's just, we just don't fucking need him very much right now, especially against a team like the New York Giants. Bateman's been cool. Very, very hard to trust, though. Justice Hill, obviously not trustable. Disappointing day. You talk about Lamar Jackson having 5 touchdown passes, 300 yards. Zay Flowers goes 6 for 53 without a touchdown. It's kind of just what he's been. Like, he'll lead the team in targets more often than not, but a lot of the times you'll see he's like sub 10 in the yards per reception total. He's getting some shots downfield, but, in games like this when Lamar is just pinpointing balls 40 yards down the field, and most of these drives ended up just ending on long touchdown passes. Rashad Bateman had 2 long touchdown passes. Tez Walker, their extremely untalented rookie, 21-yard touchdown pass. Like, when these long touchdown passes just end drives immediately, that's really a problem for a dude like Zay Flowers, where you're scoring from 50 yards out. Okay, that might be like 2 more catches for another 20 yards for a dude like Zay, who's depending on those 8 for 80 type days here. So probably better days ahead for Zay, but I think he should be probably ranked as like a wide receiver 3 going forward. On the flip side, DeVito got hurt. Tim Boyle came in. There's nothing really to talk about here. Link Neighbors had a good day. Finally found the end zone for a while. Like, you're starting him as a wide receiver too, just because of the targets. Tracy's getting into scary hours now that Devin Singletary is taking some goal line work. Devin Singletary outcaught him 3-1 here. Let's take a look at the snap counts though. Tracy's still the more talented back, and I still think he'll be more involved going forward. Yeah, 67% of the snaps to Singletary's 35%. So nothing like it wasn't like a huge jump up anywhere. I think game script was just like, we're getting the shit beat out of us. Let us maybe try something new here, see what Singletary can do for the offense. That's never a winning strategy there. But yeah, Tracy's he's getting to that point because the offensive line is so banged up. The defense cannot stop any drives. They're about to be playing with probably like fucking Tim Boyle under center. Tracy's going to be a very risky flex play going forward. Cowboys, Panthers. Cowboys, they continue to be like very usable on the fantasy front when it comes to Cooper Rush, Rico Dowdle, and CD Lamb. That's really all I can say about those three dudes. Those are the only three you're thinking about, and they're really, really strong starts down the stretch. I believe they play. Actually, let me pull it up. Play Carolina. They get Tampa Bay next week. So still another really, really strong matchup here. Then they get Philadelphia. That's a really tough matchup in the finals, obviously. But you play all three of those guys, no question about it. Or I guess, no one's really streaming Cooper Rush. But Superflex leagues, he's been really, really good. Bryce Young had his worst day in quite a while here. Just a bad day for the offense overall. Chuba Hubbard really let down in a spot where it felt like Chuba was probably about to put up a 25-30 piece for your fantasy team and like single-handedly get you to the semifinals. I will say one thing that we've kind of noticed in the office, me and Case been talking about for the last couple of weeks, the Cowboys defense is far from a rollover team anymore, despite all the injuries that they're facing. They came into the year as one of the top defenses, or so we thought they would be, because they performed like that last year. And then they were abysmal, and they've gotten a lot better as the season progressed. More so in the previous few weeks, and they're not a team that's a pushover anymore by any means on the defensive fronts. So just something to keep in mind with matchups going forward. Jalen Coker busted off an 83-yard touchdown. That doesn't give me any faith to actually start him next week, but they also do have some good matchups going forward. Carolina gets Arizona and then Tampa Bay over the next 2 weeks. So you could do worse, but if he doesn't have that 83-yard touchdown, you're talking about a 5-point game. Thielen, I continue to roll him out in the lineups. When you look at the receiver group with Jalen Coker finally back, it was David Moore who took a seat. Xavier Legette did get banged up. Like when they came out 3 wide receiver sets, it was Coker, it was Thielen in the slot, and it was Xavier Legette, despite David Moore playing well recently. But Xavier Legette, I believe, banged up maybe his hip or something. The dude, yeah, whatever. Jets, Jags, what a fucking game. What a game. The Jets, rally 25 points in the second half, end up winning the game 32-25. Rodgers and Davante Adams, just vintage connection here. I heard a few insane stats. I know like at halftime, I think Davante had maybe 2 fantasy points. He had 135 receiving yards in the final 4 minutes of regulation. That was the most in that time frame in the last century. I want to say the stat was that I heard today. Davante goes 9 for 198, 2 touchdowns, like making snags on the sideline, ripped off a 70-yard touchdown. Him and Aaron Rodgers in the last 4 minutes of the game when they needed game-winning drives. That was 2020 Davante Adams, Aaron Rodgers. That was 2019, 2021 Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams. Like that was what we all thought was going to possibly happen when he came over, and we finally saw it. Garrett Wilson got home 3 for 56 and a touchdown. Let's not go crazy here. Obviously, it was against the Jaguars defense, which is the worst pass defense in the NFL by a wide margin. Rodgers 6 for 45 on the ground. A lot of that is the Jaguars play so much man coverage. And when you do that, you allow quarterbacks to run out of the pocket. That will be a player prop that I'll keep my eye on. Whoever Jacksonville is playing against over the coming weeks, they play, who is it? Vegas and then Tennessee. Okay, depending on who the Raiders QB is. Like if Ritter's the QB, I think the rushing prop is fantastic there, whatever. He's a mobile quarterback, so it'll be a little bit elevated probably, but I still think the over's good regardless. Tennessee, Will Levis, yeah. I just realized you guys can't even see those fucking matchups on the side. I apologize. Vegas and Tennessee, so I don't even know who the quarterback in Tennessee is going to be at that point, but anyways, that's really what happened. That was the story of this game. Breece Hall did end up playing, led the backfield in carries, 9 for 30. Got lucky if you started him because he rolled in for a touchdown at the end of the game there. 2 for 21 through the air as well. So ended up having like a decent PPR play for you, but nothing about that backfield screams any sort of confidence going forward. Hopefully Hall, maybe he'll get more limited practices in this week and become healthier and healthier, and you feel a little bit better about starting him next week. The Jets play against the Rams. So definitely a matchup that you can take advantage of for running backs. On the flip side, Mac Jones played pretty well. Travis Etienne ended up out carrying Tank. This is just such a ridiculous backfield to try to predict. It's never going to happen. So both of them are very risky on a weekly basis. I'll tell you who's not risky. Brian fucking Thomas, dude. 10 for 105, 2 touchdowns on 14 targets. I genuinely think Brian Thomas is probably going to be taken like 2 full rounds ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. in drafts next year. I think BTJ will go at the not I don't want to say at the turn, but like he'll be 202 to 206, 207 in that range. And I think Marv, it ain't great. End of third, probably early fourth, mid fourth ish in that range. There, BDJ has just been unstoppable. He is separating on every route. He looks so good. Brenton Strange, he was a dude that I had a couple friends reach out to me about streaming tight ends, and he was someone that I highlighted. I wish I was like more confident in it. I wish I said it more confidently, because in my mind I was like, Brenton Strange is actually a super nice fill-in this week with Evan Ingram out, with Christian Kirk out, with Gabe Davis out, with everybody out. Brenton Strange like gets targets when Evan Ingram's not playing, and he got 12 targets, 11 catches, 73 yards in this one. So if Ingram continues to, he's actually out for the season, isn't he? Yeah. So Brenton Strange is actually a pretty good fill-in for fantasy streaming tight ends if you need one. Dolphins, Texans. Yeah, everything about this was awful for Miami. We have Grant DeBow stretchered off, super serious injury. We have OBJ was cut last week, released. We have Jalen Waddle, I believe, suffered like an MCL sprain, so he's going to miss some time. And even with that, Tyreek Hill goes 2 for 36. The offense is broken. The offense is terrible. Tua played awful. I will say Mike McDaniel came out after the game and talked about how Tyreek Hill was in the wrong place at the wrong time a few times, and that led to a couple of the Tua interceptions. So I don't want to put all the blame on him. In an offense where you don't have a leash to not be perfect. Like the routes, the timing, everything needs to be precise and perfect. And when it's not, you see games like this out of Tua. They just cannot win games against good teams. And Mike McDaniel absolutely on the chopping block here. I think he'd be cool to be an OC somewhere. He's a likable guy, a likable character, but I think we're seeing the end of like what's coming to fruition. A lot of times when you have these, I don't want to say gimmicky offenses, but when you have these offenses or these trends or tactics take the league by storm, after a year or two, teams get tape on what you're doing when you're a one-trick pony, and if you don't adapt, you end up dying, and that's what we're kind of seeing out of Miami here. Achane continues to, dominate in the receiving game. He continues to just be, a great piece behind a really shitty offensive line, unfortunately. If this is a good offensive line, Devon Achane might be running for 80, 90 yards a game, but that ain't going to happen. Jonnu Smith continues his fucking tear, 9 for 48 and a touchdown on a team-high 11 targets. The Falcons literally should have just cut Kyle Pitts' fucking ass and kept Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is playing now how we thought Kyle Pitts was going to play when he was drafted. It's actually insane. What else is going on? Malik Washington filled in. I think he might be like the next man up in the receiving game behind Tyreek Hill, Jonnu Smith, and Devon Achane, if all those guys are out and Jalen Waddle is out for the time being. So, yeah, do with that what you want. CJ Stroud, another wonky game. I just think Bobby Slowick is not a great offensive coordinator, to be honest with you. He just like tries to get the ground game going on first and second down every fucking play, and it really ruins their offense. It's like a different version of what they're doing in Indy, where it's like, yeah, every first and second down is a run play, and then you put Anthony Richardson in 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11, and it's like you're asking for bad plays, forced throws, all that kind of stuff, and that's kind of what happened with CJ Stroud in this one. Bad game for Mixon. Caught some passes, but overall the passing game was just really poor in this one. Nico Collins did get 2 touchdowns, but you're talking about 4 for 17. Obviously, you're starting Nico. You're not starting Tank Dell. You're starting Joe Mixon. Nothing really new here. Speaking of A-Rich and the Colts, really the story of this game was the Colts were the better team for quite a while, the entire first half. And if you watch this game at all, if you're even watching Red Zone, basically the entire game swung when Jonathan Taylor broke off a 41-yard touchdown run that was reviewed because he dropped the ball at the half-yard line, getting ready to celebrate on the touchdown run. And then they called it a touchback going the other way. As soon as that happened, the team absolutely just fucking imploded. and nothing went right for them afterwards. You're talking about like double passes that were returned for pick sixes. You're talking about like it just got really bad really, really quickly. Bad game from A-Rich, got some points through the ground. Jonathan Taylor ran really well and would have had there's a lot of people that probably lost fantasy matchups, did not get to the semis because of that fumble. You're talking about an 8-point swing there. So if any of you guys have Jonathan Taylor and you lost by 8 points or fewer, it was because of that 3 inches right there, right? Because you get -2 for the fumble. So you'd get those 2 back and then the touchdown, obviously. So not great for JT there. Pittman, whatever. This was obviously a very tough matchup. It's a very tough defense to throw the ball against. So I wasn't expecting a ton of output from A-Rich, but Josh Downs first game back, 3 for 32, 8 targets. Can't really start anybody here. I think I'm okay with Josh Downs in a good matchup, which let's see if they have going forward. You have Tennessee and then the New York Giants. So yes, 2 good matchups. I think Josh Downs is a flex-worthy play going forward. The Broncos, Bo Nix definitely played his worst game in quite a while. Nothing to really take away from here. As I've been saying, you cannot start any running back, and Cortland Sutton continues to be a dude that you can start. Low ceiling game here, but ended up 3 for 32 and a touchdown on 9 targets. So, he did his thing. I almost want to come back to Buffalo and Detroit. Yeah, let's do that. Eagles beat the Steelers 27-13. If you guys were following along throughout the week, this was one of my favorite parlays to hit. We had the Eagles -5, and we had the Patriots and Cardinals over 46, which was a little bit of a sweat. They scored a touchdown at the end there, but you can follow all of my picks and my plays and my bets and stuff on the Pick'It app. Download that below. Basically, Philly just dominated this game from start to finish, mostly finish. Pittsburgh had 2 drives in the entire second half. The time of possession was 25-5. 25 minutes to 5 minutes in the second half. This is what Philly did to them. Listen, at the end of the day, this Pittsburgh offense cannot do anything if George Pickens is out. It's a very fragile offense, and Russell Wilson is not startable. Like Pat Freiermuth has been pretty good as a fantasy guy, but other than that, when you're in a game against the Philadelphia Eagles, elite pass defense, without George Pickens, nothing is getting going there. They play in Baltimore next week. Baltimore is 6-point favorites. I hit that line this morning, like as soon as I saw it. George Pickens very likely out again next week. Maybe he gets in a practice towards the end of the week. I think he's way more likely to play in week 17. Baltimore's secondary has been way better over the last month. They made a few changes in terms of personnel and how they're playing their safeties and stuff like that. But Baltimore secondary, like we had thought about it in the beginning of the year, very different to what it is right now. Pittsburgh, I think, is going to struggle mightily against Baltimore next week. 6-point favorites. Also, TJ Watt injured his ankle. Don't believe it's anything serious, but it's possible he misses next week's game. If that is the case as well, like that's a fucking lock of a line right there. For Philly, A.J. Brown did twist his ankle as well at the end of the game here. He came out and said afterwards, it's no big deal. He's fine. Last time he said that, I believe, like we ended up having a 4-week absence from him. So keep a very close eye on practice reports for A.J. Brown. Saquon Barkley got a little bit dinged up, but apparently that's not anything serious at all here. So nothing really to write home about those games or those players. Cardinals, Pats. Yeah, I mean, this story was James Conner. Trey Benson got banged up. James Conner brought it home, 16 for 110, 2 touchdowns, 5 for 28 on the ground. He might be a playoff league winner because they get Carolina and the Rams over the next 2 weeks. That is about as good of a run as you can ask for, and James Conner looks like he's going to be a fucking league winner down the stretch with Trey Benson out here. Passing game continues to be extremely inconsistent with very little upside here. McBride gets home, but you can't really trust anybody else in this passing offense. On the flip side, yeah, this offense is just completely without juice here outside of Drake May, unfortunately. Buccaneers, Chargers. We're seeing the Chargers kind of being exposed right now. They started off really well, and their defense ranked really highly in a lot of categories because they were playing against a lot of backup QBs. Like if you go back and look at all of their wins and you look at the teams that they won against, if you actually write out the starting quarterbacks that they played against, it is a terrible, terrible list for the most part. Like 90% of them, terrible list. Without J.K. Dobbins, their run game has been awful, and without a run game, a Greg Roman and Harbaugh coach team is not playing well. And if your entire offense really is dictated by J.K. Dobbins, you're in trouble right now. So I would imagine that they are going to really, really heavily prioritize a running back this offseason. I don't know if that's in the draft. I don't know if it's in free agency, but I would be very surprised if the Chargers don't walk into next year with a high-quality running back who will be a very, very high fantasy pick as well. Herbert, sub 200 yards. McConkey did get into the end zone on the first drive of the game, 558 and a touchdown, so he got home. Stone Smart, another decent fill-in while Will Disley is out, 5 for 50. Quentin Johnston, 5 for 45 and a touchdown. This dude, I think he has like 8 touchdowns on the year or something like that. Insane numbers. Not really trustable, but in matchups against like Tampa Bay, you could probably throw him into your flex. Baker Mayfield continues his fucking crusade against the league right now. 288, 4 touchdowns, continues to be a high-end QB1. Bucky, banged up for the most part, ended up going 15 for 117 on the ground. Really, it kind of hurt because he did not get into the end zone. Passing game, nothing going there. 2 for -4. That's more Rachaad White's foray. They did split carries perfectly, 15-15 apiece. Rachaad White, 2 for 17, and a touchdown on the ground. So again, they continue both to be like really, really strong starts. Mike Evans, 9 for 159, 2 touchdowns on 11 targets. Dude just does not age. He now needs, I believe, 86 yards per game over the final 3. All really good matchups in order for him to hit 1,000 yards for the 11th straight season. Mike Evans, as good as it gets right now. Jalen McMillan, now back-to-back weeks, right? I was skeptical. 459, 2 touchdowns last week. Take out the touchdowns, and it's not a great game. Again, he followed it up, though. He might be Baker's second favorite target. He might be kind of bending into form here. We might see this like late rookie push. It happens with a lot of rookies. We thought it might be the second half. It's just the final quarter here. 5 for 75 and a touchdown, running all the routes, getting targets, converting them. So really strong game from McMillan. And now you have to kind of consider him a flex play because the matchups going forward for Tampa Bay are Dallas next week and then Carolina the week after that. It just seems like so many teams have like the easiest schedules for whatever reason. Didn't really talk about the running backs in LA here. I don't think there's much to talk about. You could just never start Gus Edwards. And Kamani Vidal, unfortunately, we thought maybe the snap counts would start to move more in his favor. Have not. So neither of them are startable at this point. Packers and the Seahawks. This was just another game, where Josh Jacobs was the game plan. And I've been talking about this for a month now. This was the reason why you get a guy like Jacobs over a guy like Aaron Jones for this time of the year when you just want to bang it up the fucking middle over and over and over and over and over again. Even if you average 3.6 yards per carry, like this is what you do to a defense. You just destroy them and you smother them. Josh Jacobs scores another touchdown, goes for 135 from scrimmage. Like just one of the best fantasy players of the entire second half of the season. Disappointing day from the rest of the receivers, obviously, outside of Romeo Doubs, who gets in twice, but you can never really predict who's going to get the touchdowns. Didn't have a single receiver. Jordan Love, played well. 229, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. 8.5 yards per attempt, but Christian Watson, 3 for 56, Romeo Doubs, 3 for 40, Tucker Kraft, 2 for 34, Jaden Reed, 5 for 34, but that's more of, what we're just getting from Green Bay is just high-level production from Josh Jacobs, good games from Jordan Love, but no ceiling from any of the real receivers here. They play New Orleans next week, which is a phenomenal fucking matchup, and then they're at Minnesota in week 17. New Orleans, you're playing against the Saints. I think most of the receivers are flex plays, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs. Don't feel phenomenal about him just because you never know where the touchdowns are going to go. Josh Jacobs will be minus 5,000 to score a touchdown next week, but yeah, easy matchup for him. They're getting hot at the right time, and maybe the favorite to win the NFC North, which we'll get into with the Lions in a second. I know that breaks a lot of people's hearts, including mine. On the flip side, another big injury here. Geno Smith, he left the game and was pretty banged up. Sam Howell came in and played, I think, the entire second half and a quarter of the second quarter as well. So they might have to go to Sam Howell going forward, depending on the severity of Geno Smith's injury. If that's the case, that is scary hours because, as you could see, he had 14 attempts, 24 passing yards, 1.7 yards per attempt. Like as soon as he went under center, he reverted right back to Washington Sam Howell. And if you guys don't remember Sam Howell last year, he threw for a lot of yards. But that motherfucker was sacked 8 times a game. He holds on to the ball like it is his baby. Like it is a newborn and nobody can touch him. Like it is It is peak COVID. I just had a newborn. I don't want anybody touching my baby. That's what he's doing with the ball. He came in and immediately started taking hurries, started taking pressure, started taking sacks, like right out of the rip. It's not good for the Seattle Seahawks if Sam Howell has to play for the coming weeks. As far as the backfield, Charbonnet ends up having a decent game because he gets into the end zone, 8 for 54 and a touchdown, 1 for 12 through the air. Kenneth Walker was not ruled out very early on, but he was doubtful. So, like, there's a little bit of hope that he could return next week, I think. Seattle plays against, who do they play? Minnesota, so a tough ground game. If Kenneth Walker returns, it's going to be hard to trust either Walker or Charbonnet in that one, unfortunately. JSN continues to lead the team again, 12 targets. The next leading receiver was DK with 3. 12 targets on 33 throws, 10 for 83. So another huge PPR day for Jackson Smith and Jigba. Another flop day for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. He's getting close to unstartable territory, DK Metcalf is. Now we move back in time to the Bills and the Lions. Game of the week for show. We had a combined 90 points. We had a combined, I don't know, I have the yardage in front of me, but you could just see Detroit receiving 494 yards. Let's start with Buffalo. So we have Josh Allen go Superman again, 2 more passing touchdowns, 2 more rushing touchdowns, about 1 billion fantasy points for you. James Cook, 14 for 105, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 1 for 28 through the air. It's so annoying when people tell people to sit James Cook. Like, these are the games he's capable of. You fucking idiots. Now, what's a little bit concerning here is with everybody at full strength now, Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman playing, Shakir, Amari Cooper, all that. Allen throws for 362 and 2 touchdowns. We didn't have a single wide receiver go over 65 yards. Khalil Shakir caught 6 passes, but 39 yards, had 1 touchdown. We had Ty Johnson, the running back, lead the team with 5 for 114 through the air. Like, very difficult to predict what's actually going to happen here. It's obviously signs of a very good offense and a very strong offense. Like, you have a lot of options to go to. But really hard, Amari Cooper, just a fucking 0. After seeing 14 targets last week and someone who I thought was going to be a strong play this week against the Lions, 48 points for Buffalo. Josh Allen, 362, and Amari Cooper, nowhere to be found in that box score. So really hard to trust anybody in this passing game outside of Khalil Shakir and James Cook on the ground. Now, the concerning part for Detroit, put up a lot of points. Jared Goff, 494, 5 touchdowns. They got behind too quickly, and it took them right out of the ground game. As you could see, David Montgomery, 5 carries, 4 yards on the ground. Very uncharacteristic. Jahmyr Gibbs does end up getting in twice, mainly most of his damage, 5 for 83 and a touchdown through the air there. Amon-Ra, massive fucking game, 14 for 193 and a touchdown. This was the game that we've kind of been waiting for. A lot of the problem was that the Lions defense was really good early on, so it didn't allow for Jared Goff to need to throw the ball 59 fucking times. Unfortunately, for Detroit Lions fans, they suffered another 2 likely season-ending injuries that are important to their defense. Aleem McNeil, their stud interior defensive lineman, and Carlton Davis. They're probably their top cornerback right now. So now, the injuries have just piled up on every level so fucking quickly and so severely. Like, none of them are 1 to 2 week injuries. They're all starting to be like season-ending 6 to 8 week injuries. You have Aleem McNeil now on top of Aiden Hutchinson, 2 of the stronger defensive linemen in all of the NFL. You have Malcolm Rodriguez, Alex Anzalone. You have Carlton Davis. Like, the injuries are adding up to a point where they're not going to be able to stop the really good teams in the playoffs, man. And I don't think they have the defense anymore. If their defense was at full strength, they would be the favorite in the NFL by a wide margin. I've probably told you guys this before. I put in the Lions were my Super Bowl pick preseason. So I put a bet in on DraftKings for $50. Detroit, they were 12 to 1 at the time. So I felt good about it all year. I cashed out of that bet this morning. So I ended up doubling my money on the Lions. I don't have faith that they're going to win the Super Bowl anymore because their defense is just too ravished at this point. It ain't their fault. They're a great fucking team, great coach, great talent. It's just when you have 6 important season-ending injuries on defense, you just you're playing against Philly in the playoffs. You got to play against Green Bay. You got to play against all these juggernauts, and then you're probably going to meet Buffalo again in the Super Bowl or whoever the fuck it is, Baltimore. One of these very, very top-level offenses are going to be able to score against your defense. Yeah, so I mean, good to see Sam Laporta 7 for 111, but yeah, like you're gonna see a lot of production in the box score when Jared Goff throws the ball. They're indoors. The other team scores 50 points. He throws it 60 times. Yeah, great for the offense, great for fantasy. If you don't give a fuck about the Detroit Lions and all you care about is your players scoring points, like I'm happy for you. All right, happy for you. They play against, who do they finish their season with? They're at Chicago and at San Francisco. So the dome games are done. This was like this was a big talking point in the preseason. It was one of the reasons I love the Lions, right? One, they didn't really have flaws on any levels of their offense or defense prior to the injuries. Two, was their schedule allowed them to play 14 of the first 15 games indoors, right? And that's great for Jared Goff, who needs that, and just the speed of their offense. Now they finish the season at Chicago, at San Francisco. You know, they're not going to be underdogs in either of those games, but I do think it adds an element of adversity to the team that they probably haven't really faced before. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a little bit of suspect play from the Lions down the stretch, given the injuries, given the fact that they have to go on the road now, back-to-back games, given the fact that they're playing outside in those games. So, like, we could see a little bit of falter. I think they're still a very strong playoff team, obviously, but Super Bowl aspirations kind of fall off a little bit for me, in my humble arse opinion. All right. McNeil tore his ACL last night. Yeah. Okay. So it's the ACL. He's out. Yeah. I thought he was out for the season. Just a lot of injuries adding up on there, man. It's unfortunate. So that'll be the Monday recap for Week 15. We'll obviously be back tomorrow with our waiver wire video, running back rankings for Week 16 on Wednesday, wide receiver on Thursday, private Q&A on Saturday. You can go sign up to be a Big Dog member on bdge.co. And that's all I got for you. All right. So subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you when I see you. Smoochies.